I'm Carrie, and this is Student Loan Chit-Chat. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today is Sunday. All right, so anyways, I wanted to talk to you about basically paying off debt in ways that are not considered mainstream, or perhaps going against the grain, or are considered unconventional. Basically, long story short, or sometimes long story longer, if I had listened to social media gurus, let's just say like Dave Ramsey, whom I actually enjoy watching. It's an entertaining show. I watch it for entertainment purposes and, bits of knowledge here and there. But had I taken some of that advice to heart, I would be flat broke today. And when I mean flat broke, I'm talking working 2 jobs flat broke. Something I've learned in my 55 years is when it comes to money, money is so individual to the person, their goals, their spending habits, probably things we all know, but we forget. Especially when we start listening to social media that tells us how we should go about paying our bills. So let's talk about the unconventional way that I paid off my mortgage and the reasons I choose to lease a car instead of owning a car, and how it has truly helped me financially. So in 2017, I was blessed to get some money from my late parents, and I chose instead to do everything opposite of what I guess you could say social media gurus like Dave Ramsey would recommend. A lot of social media financial gurus will say things like, do not get into further debt if you come into some funds. What you should immediately do is pay off debt. If you have a student loan, you should pay off your student loan. And if you know somebody like Dave Ramsey, he would say that student loan forgiveness is a fraud, and that you should immediately use any extra money to pay off your student loan. You should not purchase a piece of property so long as you have a student loan, yada, yada. So while I could have paid off the student loan, I chose not to. And the reason I chose not to is I knew that student loan was not a fraud. Yeah, the program's been run pretty poorly. It's slowly, hopefully getting better, okay? We'll keep an eye on it for you on this channel. But hopefully, it's improving. But I knew that even though it doesn't, operate really well and had serious problems and, it still has bugs to, work out, I knew it wasn't a fraud. So knowing that, also knowing that the place that I lived at, the apartment that I lived in, had recently been sold to a new company. Now, if you understand anything about real estate, when a piece of real estate gets sold from one company to another, they typically do what with it? They raise the rent. So what I chose to do is I chose to just sit on the funds for a few years. Not a super long time, but just for a few years while I figured out exactly what to do. I then decided in 2020 to buy a piece of property. And I signed on the lease for that property 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks at the most, before COVID was basically taking over Tampa, and the whole city wound up closing because of it. Had I listened to the social media advice of people like Dave Ramsey, and again, I enjoyed the Dave Ramsey show. I subscribe to it. I think it's, it's fun to listen to, okay? I've picked up good, tips, advice, food for thought, whatnot from the show. But had I listened to that, I would have used my money to have paid off the student loan. And while the student loan would have been paid off, that would absorb all the money that I would have had to be able to make a down payment. I would have not had the funds to make a down payment. Yeah, I had about, maybe $25,000 of my own money saved up, but it wouldn't have been nearly quite enough. Especially during the time of COVID and after COVID, it would not have been enough to have even been able to compete, especially in today's market. So basically, I would have used the funds that I had available to get into a place. I would have used it to pay off a student loan that was already, and I knew it was already going to be on track for forgiveness. Even though at the time it still had about, 7 years or so, I still knew that in time it would be forgiven. If you get too involved in listening to social media, you're going to find that you may make financial moves that are to your detriment versus to your benefit. There is no way today, and what is it? We're in February 2023. There is no way today I would have been able to afford my condo, because the condo that I purchased in 2020, I purchased it for $100,000. My condo today is selling in the neighborhood of 200, and I've seen it sold for up to 215,000. It is more than double of what I purchased it for. I would have missed out on that opportunity. Furthermore, I would have wasted $100,000 doing what? Paying off a student loan that was going to be forgiven anyways. That would have been a huge waste of money. So the other thing also is, let's talk about vehicles. I lease a car. Now, some people will say, like Dave Ramsey, and plenty of other social media buffs will say, leasing a car, worst thing possible, horrible. How could you lease a car? You're throwing money down the drain. But people forget something. At 55 years old, I've owned vehicles. I've owned vehicles outright. Every vehicle I've ever purchased has always been maybe anywhere from 5 to 7 years old. So sometimes, people will speak to you like you've never owned a car before. Trust me, at 55, I've owned my vehicles. I hate owning vehicles. I don't like it. I just don't like owning vehicles. As I told one person, it's amazing because ever since I started leasing a car, it seems like when I take it into the shop for its regular maintenance, I don't get that guy that, comes out in the button-down white shirt with the black tie and his Docker pants and a belt that doesn't quite fit around his waist, squatting down with a clipboard and a pen, telling me the added things that they found wrong with my vehicle. It's been amazing because ever since I leased a car, that doesn't happen anymore. Now it's just, okay, I'm here, do the maintenance and drive off, okay? The reason I leased a car is because when I got divorced, and that was around, I think it was 2013. When I got divorced in 2013, I had an SUV. And the SUV was a 2006. So I was probably about, just a little under, 10 years old. But the SUV required a lot of maintenance. And it seemed like it was always in the shop for something, I would take it to the shop and it would need this. And then it wasn't a matter of if the car was going to break down. It was when was the car going to break down. It's not really a car, it's an SUV, okay? And it was a big engine. I didn't need the vehicle. And finally, I said to my mechanic that I really, really put a lot of trust into. It was a good place to go. I said, how many times does this car seem to be in the shop? And he said to me, in all honesty, he goes, you're looking at probably around $2,000 a year to maintain an SUV. And furthermore, when I did my research more on the SUV, it turns out that, lucky me, the year that I purchased the year vehicle that I purchased, the 2006 vehicle, is actually one of the highest repair maintenance vehicles. So what the mechanic was saying and what my own research found, because I never just take a mechanic's word, always, do your due diligence and look it up. It actually matched. It said there were a lot of issues with this 2006 model, yada, yada. So I started doing the math and I'm like, I always had an emergency savings account. Okay? Always had an emergency savings account. And it just seemed like it was always being drained about every, 5-6 months this vehicle would be in. And I finally thought to myself, to help improve my financial situation, what I need to do is I need to stabilize my transportation. I need to stabilize my vehicle costs. The SUV was also, because it was it was an 8-cylinder. I think it was an 8-cylinder SUV, okay, because it could tow. So I apologize. I think it was an 8-cylinder SUV. It could tow a lot. But to basically be able to stabilize it, the gas on the vehicle was around $150 a month. So this was not a cheap SUV to maintain. And I thought to myself, one of the things that might help me financially is if I could just stabilize my transportation costs. So I chose to lease a vehicle, and I really did my homework before I chose to lease one. And I looked at all the pros and all the cons. And believe me, you can find, YouTube video, article, blogs, whatever, how leasing is horrible. Leasing is fleecing. If you listen to Ramsey, okay, leasing is horrible. It's awful. People will tell you it's just the biggest waste of money, yada, yada, okay? So I looked at those and I really considered that. And then I looked at my needs. And I thought to myself, you only drive like, 7 miles to work. I can bike to work faster than I can drive to work. And I would probably continue biking to work like I used to. I used to ride a bicycle to work, okay? Except the Florida hurricanes kind of put a damper on the ride home, those afternoon storms, so I don't do that. But I really looked at my individual needs, and I thought, okay, I don't have kids, so no one's going to be sitting damaging the back seat. I drive less than 10 miles each way to work, so we've got that. And I really looked at the requirements of a lease vehicle. I know they want you to have a credit score. I think this is with Toyota. They want you to have a credit score somewhere in the 700s. I met that. Basically, I thought to myself, leasing a vehicle might be the ticket for me. Furthermore, I like the fact that I'm not limited to having to stay in Tampa, because the vehicle that I had, I was nervous just to take it beyond Orlando. Okay, I mean, literally, this vehicle, I just could not trust it. And I wanted the freedom to be able to go anywhere I wanted to go on a dime and not have to worry about, is the car going to fall apart? Okay, so I decided to lease a vehicle to help stabilize it. And I told myself I'll lease it for 3 years. And if at the end of 3 years, I feel like I'm just being totally ripped off and leasing is fleecing, I can always get out and I can buy a vehicle. Well, the 3 years went by and I loved it so much that a year ago I released again. Leasing allowed me to stabilize my finances, even though, maybe it costs a little bit more. Maybe it even costs a lot more, although I doubt it, okay? Mathematically, we can all sit and say, it's cheaper for you to buy a car. I've purchased a car my entire life. I've been there, done that. I did not like it. I love leasing. Now then, here's something I've learned. If you follow social media, some of the things you follow will actually hurt you financially more than if you follow your own gut instinct. Let's talk about another way I followed my gut instinct. And this one, I don't even think I told my friends about it, actually. When I purchased my condo, what's another thing we always hear? Have a savings account. We hear this all the time, right? Have a savings account. I agree. You should have an emergency savings account. However, the first thing I did when I got my condo, I ditched it. But I wouldn't tell anybody I ditched it. I ditched an account, I think it was around $3,000 to $4,000. I just ditched the entire savings account. Now somebody would go, well, that's dumb. On the surface it is. And depending upon your life situation, it is. But in my case, I figured out it was the most economically smart thing to do. So let me explain. Basically, I took out a very small mortgage. It was I think it was around $45,000, okay? Because I put most of the money down for my condos. So I bought half of what I could afford. I could have purchased up to $200,000 comfortably. I could have avoided PMI. That's the the insurance, the mortgage insurance you have to have. So I would have been just fine. But I knew that for me, it was best for me to go small, purchase half of what I could afford to make sure I was really gonna be, in a financially good place. So I purchased this, small place, and I'm sitting on a $3,000 savings account. And when I rented an apartment, I felt really good about having that $3,000 savings account. It was, nice and handy. And I was following the rules that society tells you should have a savings account. But the reason I dumped it in full, I took the entire account and zeroed it out. Okay, no penalties, it was just a standard savings account, so I didn't pay any fees or anything. It's because I figured out that the savings account was going to cost me a lot of money to maintain due to the fact that my mortgage was so small. Okay, it was a 15-year mortgage, and my goal was to pay it off in 7 years. That was my goal, pay off my 15-year mortgage in 7 years. I realized, I'm sitting on a $3,000 savings account. If I would take that $3,000 and on the very first mortgage payment, put the entire thing towards the very first mortgage payment, I would knock out 12 months of mortgage payment. And the reason I got the idea actually came during the signing. I think that's what they call it, when I was signing for it, okay? And the lady that the lady at the title company where I was signing it, she said to me, like just seconds, I think, after, we were done, I was getting ready to walk out the door, because she knew I really wanted to pay this off in 7 years. She said to me, Carrie, She said, if you want to get this paid off in 7 years, my suggestion to you is pay off the first half of that mortgage as fast as you can, because you will save the most in interest. She said, because it's an amortized loan, and amortized loans is like your student loan, your car, and your house. All the interest is put up front first, and then you don't see changes to the balance until the last half. She said, if you want to really pay this off in 7 years, because she knew that's what I wanted, she said, make sure that you actually pay off the first half of the mortgage just as fast as you possibly can. So once I signed for it, I got home and I was just determined to figure out, how this amortized loan worked. And I looked at it month by month and I went, oh my gosh, I'm sitting on a savings account at $3,000, but yet I'm going to pay 157 or somewhere around there. Okay. 150 a month in interest. It doesn't make sense to have a $3,000 savings account. And again, we're talking a very small mortgage, okay, $45,000. All right, I was almost denied the mortgage because it was almost considered too small. All right, so we're talking, I'm going to sit on this $3,000 savings account. Meanwhile, I'm going to pay $150, $160 a month in interest. This is basically going to whittle away at the savings account. So I did the math on it, and I figured out if I would just take the $3,000 and put it all towards the principal, I would knock out the first year of mortgage payment on the first shot. So I did that. And here's the kicker. After I did that, it ignited something in me. I don't know what, but it was like I just went, oh my goodness, look at what I just did. I think I can do this again. I picked up a part-time job. The student loan, as we all know, went into forbearance. All my student loan money went towards it. My part-time job went towards it. Any extra cash that I had in my paycheck went towards the mortgage. I think to myself, if I had not done those three moves, if I had not, put the car onto a lease and instead chose to keep paying for repairs, if I had chosen to do it the social media correct way, and that is, when you get extra funds, whether it be through an inheritance, through work, through a part-time job, whatever, if I had chosen to put that money towards the student loan because I believed and I fell for the line of, loan forgiveness is a scam, don't do it, put all your money towards the student loan, I would have lost that opportunity. If I had not put the $3,000 and gotten rid of my savings account and put it towards the mortgage, okay, and knocked out the first year of interest in one fell swoop, would that have ignited in me the idea that, hey, you know what? I can actually pay this off faster. I paid off the mortgage in just under 3 years. The mortgage was paid off. The goal was to pay it off in 6 to 7. Now then, with all that said, how do you do that sort of stuff and not sink yourself financially? Well, let's go back to talking about getting rid of the savings account. I know that sometimes I've heard people talk about money, they'll say something like a strategic default, where they default on a loan strategically and there's a goal behind it. I call it strategically getting rid of my savings account. It wasn't done carelessly, okay? So let me tell you some of the background things that I made sure that I had before I just said, let me wipe out $3,000 in a savings account. I made sure that I had enough credit. Yes, those evil credit cards that we are all told about, okay? I made sure that I had enough credit at 0% interest for a year that it could cover any major to minor emergency that I might have in my condo. So in other words, instead of me carrying a $3,000 savings account and paying $150 a month to the to the mortgage company for interest, I chose to put that cash towards the mortgage company, and I allowed the credit card company to become my savings account. Now, people will say, well, that's dumb. Okay, to each their own, all right? But if in the end it works out, then it wasn't such a dumb move. But what I knew I had was I have really good credit, okay? I think my credit usually hovers between 750 to 780, all right? I knew that I had enough access to credit at, again, 0%. I had enough access to 0% credit that if an emergency happened, I would simply use the credit card and I would have a year to pay off that emergency. So I asked myself, what is one of the biggest emergencies that I could see me having dealing with my condo? I thought to myself, okay, the HVAC system goes, it needs an entire brand new AC system, top to bottom, upgraded, blah, blah, okay? Well, again, I just purchased this place. I knew that the AC system still had 50% of life left. I had already taken measures to do things like replace the water heater, okay, stuff like that, new garbage disposal, new water heater. I had a new toilet, new plumbing fixtures for the washing machine. I took steps to already mitigate those potential damages. So I knew that the odds of the AC system completely dying in 2 years would be slim. Okay. And if I needed that money, I would be able to access it onto a credit card with 0% interest. I also knew that I was the only one using the cards. In other words, I wasn't in battle with somebody else who was, going to take it, run it up, sabotage my plans. I have this perfect plan and then, somebody comes along and sabotages it. I knew I wasn't in that camp either. So to be able to do things like that, you need to make sure that your ducks in a row. In other words, it's strategic. That's the key word. It's strategic. You get rid of your savings account to pay off one debt and to pay that debt off quickly. All right. So in the end, I wound up saving myself about about 14,000, minimum 14,000 in interest is what I saved myself paying off the condo early. Okay, and again, it wasn't a big mortgage, but it was still a mortgage nonetheless. So you need to remember, folks, that when you deal with your money, sometimes you have to be unconventional with it. Sometimes you have to think outside the box, because if we try to play it safe and we do it the way society tells you to do it, you may find it would actually hurt you. I am not kidding. I would be financially sunk today. Financially sunk. If I had done it the Dave Ramsey way, or I'd done it the way a lot of people on social media will tell you, you're irresponsible for getting rid of your savings account, which by the way, is nearly rebuilt because I paid off my condo in August. That doesn't take long to rebuild it. So people would consider that I'm careless because I got rid of the savings account. I'm careless because I lease a car, even though it stabilized my car payment, and it's allowed me in turn to stabilize the rest of my debt and pay stuff off. Okay, I didn't use money that I landed to pay off a student loan. I used it instead to get into more debt, get a condo. In the end, what matters is, do you understand what you're doing with your money? Do you understand why you're doing the things you're doing? And is your plan strategic? It would be a huge waste if I had taken, closed out the $3,000 savings account. And again, it didn't cost me any fees or anything. If I had closed out the $3,000 savings account and decided, well, I've worked hard, I should get myself a treat, and I buy it on something other than what it was intended. It's careless if you take credit cards and you run them up with no way to pay them off, which is another whole video that I might do someday. Okay, I've learned that through the School of Hard Knocks as well. Okay, so everything that I've done was strategic and it was planned. And the other thing is this: don't tell people how you're doing it. That's okay, tell them what you're doing. It's like my friends knew, I wanted to pay off my condo as fast as possible, but I didn't tell a single soul how I was doing it. I didn't tell, not even my parents. I didn't tell them, I'm going to take my savings account and I'm going to pay off the first year on the first payment. Because I don't feel like paying the mortgage company $157 a month in interest, but yet I'm holding on to a savings account that I could knock out the first year's mortgage with. Don't tell people. Because when you tell people, then you give them time to doubt your abilities to handle your finances. And sometimes you don't need that. You just need to be given rein to be able to do it. When my car lease ended, of course, I've released another car. If I was miserable leasing a car, there's no way I would have done it. I would have just taken and purchased a car, okay? Which I could just as comfortably do, and it wouldn't take me 7-8 year in payments to pay it off. So today I'm able to pay all my bills for the first time in my life on one paycheck. And for the first time in my life, I will be, this fall of 2023, I will be putting oh, probably around 25 to possibly even 30% of my paycheck into retirement. That was the end goal. Those are the end results. So when you follow people who tell you, oh, don't spend your money like this, do it like this, listen to what they have to say. But in the end, do what's right for you. Listen to what I have to say about how I did it. You may say, hey, that triggers an idea. You may go, oh my God, I could never do it that way. But all that matters is that the end result is what you want. All right, I'm Carrie. This is Student Loan Chit-Chat. I do hope you will consider subscribing. And don't forget, have a beautiful evening.